My family treated me like I was nothing, but when they saw photos of my new condo, they showed up uninvited, snooped through everything, then told me to cover my sister's debt and co-sign another loan. I grew up in a house where the TV was always louder than people's feelings. Baseball games, news anchors, commercials, noise filled every silence, so no one ever had to say what they really meant. My mom, Evelyn, loved structured dinner at 6 Laundry on Thursdays, Sunday Mass without fail. My dad, Robert, loved his recliner and the Cincinnati Bengals. My sister, Sloan, loved attention, and somehow there was never any left for me. When I was 8, I had a birthday party in the backyard because Sloan had invited her middle school friends to use the living room. I remember standing outside in the July heat holding a slice of melting cake, watching through the window as she laughed with her friends. Mom poked her head out the door and said, "Honey, be patient, she's older, let her have her time." So I swallowed it like I always did. That day I learned how quiet hurts can feel when no one thinks they matter. At 12, I won the school science fair. The project. A homemade water filter built from gravel and charcoal sat on our kitchen counter like a tiny miracle. I waited for Mom to come home so I could show her. She came in carrying bags of fabric swatches. "Oh, honey, that's nice," she said absent-mindedly, spreading the samples on the table. "Sloan needs new curtains for her room. Help me pick a color." I told myself it didn't matter. That's what you do when you're the second favorite. You build your worth by being useful, by helping, by not making noise. Years passed, and usefulness became my identity. I was the one who remembered birthdays, fixed printers, filled coffee cups, soothed arguments. When Sloan got her first job at a boutique, I stayed up helping her write product descriptions. When she quit to start her own business, I built her website for free. She'd thank me with a half smile, already typing a new caption for her next post. After college, I moved back home for a year to save money. Mom turned me into her sidekick, grocery runs, cooking, babysitting for Sloan's kids once they arrived. Every task was framed as family helping family. It sounded noble until I realized it meant Claire will do it. One Thanksgiving, Sloan arrived 3 hours late, claiming her live stream ran long. We waited to eat because Mom insisted. When she finally walked in, Mom hugged her like she'd come back from war. My plate was cold. Later that night, I found Mom wrapping leftovers for Sloan to take home. "She's juggling a business and 2 little girls," she said softly, as if that explained everything. I nodded. Of course it did. I was single, childless, and reliable. That's what I brought to the table, reliability. But inside, something kept fracturing. I'd lie awake in my childhood room listening to the hum of the refrigerator and think, if I vanished, would they even notice? When I finally got my first real promotion, senior clinical specialist, I decided to celebrate. I booked dinner at an Italian restaurant, invited everyone. They came, but it wasn't really about me. Halfway through, Mom pulled out her phone to help Sloan browse apartments closer to her customer base. Dad asked for the check before dessert arrived because the game starts at 8. I smiled through it. I always did. I paid the bill too. I didn't know it then, but that habit, buying silence, buying approval, would come back to haunt me. The next few years blurred together. I threw myself into work. My company specialized in clinical devices for rehabilitation therapy. It was logical, organized things that made sense. Unlike my family when I traveled for training or conferences, I felt freer than I ever did at home. Nobody needed me there. Nobody muted me mid-sentence to take a call. Then came the Saturday that changed everything. It was early June. Ohio heat shimmered outside like invisible fire. Mom was chasing my nieces around the living room. Dad half watching baseball, half dozing. Sloan stood in front of her phone ring light, pitching her limited stock cashmere shawls to an invisible audience. I was in the kitchen pressing the edges of a cherry pie. That pie had always been Mom's favorite, or so I thought. I made it every summer, the same recipe for my grandmother. Maybe I thought that if I kept repeating the gesture, someone would finally see me when I said the words, "I got promoted. They're transferring me to Raleigh." I expected at least a pause. "That's wonderful." But the only response was the commentator shouting, "Strike 3." No one looked up. Not Sloan, not Mom, not Dad. I stood there, pie dish in my hands, realizing I had become furniture, reliable, silent, invisible furniture. And yet deep down, something sparked a flicker I hadn't felt before. It was an anger not yet. It was recognition that I could leave, and the house would sound exactly the same. And maybe for the first time, that was okay. I didn't know it then, but this quiet rebellion, the decision to stop explaining myself, was only the beginning. 3 weeks after that silent lunch, I packed my life into cardboard boxes. It took less time than I expected. Turns out invisibility doesn't take up much space. I labeled each box in neat black marker kitchen books office because order was something I could still control. The U-Haul key felt heavy in my hand, like a decision made real. Raleigh was 600 miles away, and for once, no one was asking me to stay. The night before I left, I texted the family group chat. Officially moving tomorrow. Starting the new position on the 15th. I even added a smiley face. Out of habit, 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Red receipts blinked beside each name. Mom, Dad, Sloan. No reply. By morning, I stopped checking. As I pulled out of the driveway, the sun was just rising over the Ohio cornfields. The radio played an old Temptation song about moving on. I laughed, maybe a little bitterly. Every highway sign felt like a mile marker between who I'd been and who I was becoming. Halfway through West Virginia, Mom's text appeared. Come home Saturday to watch the girls. Sloan's got a sales event. Not good luck? Not we're proud of you. Just an instruction. I didn't answer. I kept driving. The further I went, the lighter I felt. When I crossed into North Carolina, the air seemed different, warmer, cleaner somehow. My new apartment was small, but full of sunlight. The first night I ate takeout on the floor surrounded by unopened boxes. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for anyone to call. I didn't know it then, but solitude can sound a lot like freedom. The next few months passed in a rhythm I built myself. Early morning jogs around North Hills, coffee from the same barista who remembered my name, long workdays filled with structure and quiet competence. My apartment began to look like me, calm colors, shelves lined with books, a single framed photo of the ocean from a solo trip years earlier. Then came Mocha, a tiny poodle with eyes too big for her face, rescued from a shelter downtown. She followed me from room to room like she was afraid I'd vanish. I knew the feeling. Mocha changed the rhythm of my days. Morning walks became longer. Evenings were quieter, but not lonely. It was during one of those walks that I met Evan Carter. He was at the dog park, leash in hand, watching his beagle Benji pretend to dig for buried treasure. Evan was all easy confidence, the kind that didn't need to fill silences. We talked about the dogs first, then about work. He owned a small startup designing rehab equipment for stroke patients. When I told him what I did, his smile widened. So we're in the same universe, he said. For once, I wasn't the helper or the audience. I was part of the conversation. We started meeting at the park after work. Mocha and Benji became inseparable, and slowly so did we. Dinners turned into weekends. For the first time, I could talk about my job, my goals, without feeling like I was bragging or taking up too much space. Evan listened. Not the polite, distracted kind of listening my parents mastered, but the real kind. I began to think maybe this was what family was supposed to feel like. Steady, chosen, safe. But old ghosts have a way of finding new addresses. One Sunday morning, my phone buzzed with a group chat notification I hadn't seen in months. Family party this weekend. Aunt Susan turning 60. Come early to set the table and help with the kids. No question mark, no greeting, just expectation. I stared at it for a full minute before locking my screen. I didn't go. The next day, the chat exploded. Missed calls, guilt messages, even one from Dad. We saved you cherry pie. It might have been meant as kindness, but it felt like mockery. That night, Evan made dinner salmon roasted vegetables. Nothing fancy. You okay? He asked gently. I think I just realized my family only remembers me when I'm convenient. He didn't tell me I was overreacting. He didn't say, that's just how families are. He just nodded, poured me a glass of wine and said, then maybe it's time to be inconvenient. I smiled at that. It sounded like rebellion disguised as self-respect. 2 years passed faster than I expected. Promotions, pay raises, new friends, new traditions. My apartment became a home, not a waiting room. Mocha got her own spot on the couch. Evan started leaving his jacket on the back of my chair. For a while, I thought the past had finally stopped knocking. But one evening, Harper showed up on her cross-country road trip full of stories and warmth. She took a photo of my living room sunset light across the bookshelves. Mocha curled on the rug and posted it with the caption, at my cousin Claire's. She built a life worth admiring. I laughed when she showed me, not realizing that single post would reopen every door I had closed. By the next morning, my phone was buzzing with messages from relatives who hadn't spoken my name in years. Aunt Linda wanted to know if I bought or rented. Uncle Rob asked what neighborhood it was. Then came Mom's comment under Harper's post. So proud of how well our Claire is doing. The word tasted sour. I didn't know it yet, but that one photo, one glimpse of me thriving without them, was about to make my family remember I existed and they were coming. The first message came late on a Thursday night. Claire, honey, how have you been? We miss you so much. It was from Mom. 2 years of silence, and now she suddenly missed me. The timing wasn't random. Harper's post had been up for exactly 48 hours. It had nearly 200 likes, which in my family's world was viral. Before I could even decide how to respond, a second message appeared. Sloan showed me the photos of your place. Gorgeous, looks expensive. There it was, the real conversation hiding behind small talk. By morning, I had 3 missed calls from Mom and 1 from Dad. The voicemail was short. Your mother says to call back. No greeting, no how are you. Just an instruction. When I finally answered later that afternoon, Mom didn't waste time. We were just talking about visiting. It's been far too long. Visiting, I repeated. Yes, dear, we already booked flights Saturday noon. My breath caught. You booked flights without checking with me? You've always been so accommodating, sweetheart, she said lightly. Besides, the girls can't wait to see their Aunt Claire. The line went dead before I could object. I stared at my phone, half expecting her to call back and say she was joking, but Mom never joked about logistics. When I told Evan, he just nodded. You okay with that? I'm not sure. I admitted they've ignored me for 2 years, and now they're suddenly flying down. It doesn't feel like a reunion. It feels like a mission. Then treat it like one, he said. Keep your ground. Saturday came too fast. The doorbell rang at exactly 12:15. I counted to 10 before answering, a small rebellion that steadied my pulse. Mom swept in first, wearing the same perfume she'd worn since I was a kid. Floral, sharp, impossible to ignore. She hugged me too tightly, murmuring, "Oh, sweetheart, it's been forever." Dad followed, clutching a bakery box. Brought you chocolate cake, your favorite. It wasn't. My favorite had always been strawberry shortcake, but no one had ever remembered. Then Sloan appeared, balancing her phone in one hand, 2 restless kids in the other. They darted past me into the living room, already touching everything within reach. Wow, Sloan said, looking around. This place is something. The company must pay you really well. I smiled thinly. Tea in the kitchen. Mom ran a finger along my countertop. Granite, fancy. I didn't know your position came with that kind of salary. It comes with hard work, I replied. Sloan laughed softly. Of course, but I mean 6 figures, maybe more. I didn't answer. I placed cups on a tray, steady hands hiding the pulse beating fast beneath my skin. We gathered in the living room. Dad turned on the TV and found a baseball game. The familiar drone of announcers filled the air like background static. The girls began jumping on the couch. Piper June, no, I said firmly. In this house, we sit on furniture. We don't jump on it. Mom looked surprised. They're just excited, Claire. I'm sure they are, I said evenly. But they can't be excited without breaking things. For a moment, silence spread, a fragile foreign thing in my family. Mom gave a brittle laugh. You've changed. Yes, I said. I have. The tension only thickened after that. Sloan started asking more questions. How much my mortgage was, if my company offered stock options, whether Evan and I shared finances. Her tone was casual, but her eyes calculated every answer I didn't give. At one point, her oldest knocked over a vase. Water spilled across the coffee table, soaking into my rug. I stood, grabbed a towel, and calmly said, Accidents happen, but please be careful with other people's things. Mom's lips tightened. It's just a vase. It's respect, I said quietly. That was when I felt it. The invisible thread snapping. Years of swallowing words, of keeping peace that only protected their comfort, finally unraveling. Sloan crossed her legs, phone glowing in her hand. You know, Claire, not everyone gets to build a life like this. You should be grateful. I looked at her. Grateful for what? For stability, she said. For success. For being in a position to help. Help who? She smiled faintly. You'll see. And just like that. I knew this visit wasn't about reconnection. It was a setup. I didn't know what form the ask would take, but I could feel it in the room. The way Mom kept glancing at Dad. The way Sloan's knee bounced under her sundress, restless, rehearsed. The game on TV reached halftime. The announcer said, "Both sides gearing up for the next inning." So was I. I didn't know it yet, but the real match was about to start. After lunch, the atmosphere in my apartment thickened like humidity before a storm. The TV hummed quietly. My nieces played with Mocha on the floor, and my mother sat forward on the couch with her hands clasped. I could almost see the gears turning behind her polite smile. So Mom began, voice syrupy sweet. "Your sister's had a bit of bad luck lately. Here it comes." Sloan gave a small rehearsed sigh. The boutique took a hit this quarter. Online sales dropped, and the landlord raised rent out of nowhere. Total nightmare. I nodded slowly. "That sounds tough." Sloan's tone softened. "The way a salesperson prepares for the close, it's just a rough patch, nothing long-term. We just need a little help to bridge the gap." Mom leaned in. "You remember that retirement account your father and I had? Well, I used a small portion of it to help Sloan when she first opened the shop. We didn't tell you, didn't want you to worry." My stomach tightened. How small a portion. Mom hesitated enough that now, with interest and penalties, things are delicate. But your sister's business could bounce back easily if she just had a little breathing room. Dad stared at the TV, pretending to watch the replay of a home run. "Breathing room," I repeated. "As in money." "It's not like that," Mom said quickly. "Just temporary assistance. Family helping family." Sloan pulled a manila envelope from her tote bag and set it on the coffee table. "I brought the paperwork. You just need to sign as a guarantor. The bank prefers someone with a stable salary and no kids. It's basically risk-free." I stared at the envelope as if it were ticking. "You already printed forms." "It's standard procedure," she said too fast. "You wouldn't be paying anything unless, well, something went wrong, which it won't." "You mean if your boutique fails?" I said, my voice steady, her cheeks flushed. "It won't fail, but you make more than all of us combined. This wouldn't even dent your finances." Mom's hand landed gently on my knee. "Sweetheart, your sister's under so much stress. Think of the girls. They deserve stability." There it was, the old emotional knife sharpened and polished. I leaned back, taking a slow breath. "You're asking me to risk my career for a business that's already sinking." Sloan's tone turned defensive. "That's dramatic. You work in healthcare, not finance." "Actually," I said, standing. "My company has strict ethics rules. If I sign financial documents for a private enterprise that later faces legal or bankruptcy issues, it triggers an automatic compliance review. I could lose my license." They blinked at me. They hadn't expected resistance backed by facts. I walked to the kitchen counter, picked up my phone, and opened an email. Here I handed it to Mom. An official notice from my compliance officer. I blacked out confidential parts, but the rule's clear. I can't co-sign for family debt. Sloan frowned, her voice turning sharp. "You're really hiding behind paperwork now." I met her eyes. "No, I'm protecting the life I built while you were busy burning through other people's safety nets." Dad finally spoke, still facing the TV. "You don't have to talk to your sister like that." "I'm talking to her honestly," I said. "Something no one in this family's been willing to do." Mom's tone hardened. "We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate." "But you are asking," I replied quietly. "After ignoring me for years, after muting me in your group chat." "Yes," Harper told me, "after treating me like help instead of family." Sloan scoffed. "You're so dramatic. We were busy living our lives." "Exactly," I said. "Busy with your lives. And I was busy cleaning up after them." The words hung in the air like static. Even the kids went silent. For the first time, I saw at the structure of our family like a stage set I'd spent decades performing on. Sloan, always center spotlight. Mom, director of guilt. Dad, audience who never clapped. Not anymore. I picked up the manila envelope and handed it back. "No." Sloan blinked. "No." "What no?" "I won't sign." "No! You can't stay here while you figure things out. And no, I don't owe you my stability to fix your chaos." Mom's mouth opened, closed, then she tried one last angle. "After everything we've done for you," I cut her off. "Exactly. After everything I've done for you." Sloan stood, her voice rising. "You're choosing money over family. I'm choosing peace," I said. Dad muttered almost to himself. Bengals lost last week because defense was weak. I turned to him. Then I guess I learned from them. I'm building mine strong. Silence fell. Even the TV announcer's voice seemed distant. Sloan's daughters watched eyes wide as if realizing for the first time that Aunt Claire could say no. Mom's face crumpled into practiced tears. We'll just go. We don't need your charity. You never did, I said softly. You just needed my obedience. They gathered their things. The envelope disappeared back into Sloan's tote. She hesitated by the door. You've really changed. I had to, I said. You'd never leave room for the old me to breathe. The door shut behind them with a soft click. For a moment, the apartment was painfully quiet. Mocha jumped into my lap, her warm body trembling. I stroked her fur, realizing it wasn't just her shaking. It was me. Too. I exhaled slowly. My hands were steady again. That sound, the door clicking into place, wasn't just them leaving. It was something else finally closing inside me. I didn't become cold. I became clear. And though I didn't know it yet, that clarity would be my weapon. The next morning, sunlight slid through the blinds and thin golden lines cutting across the living room floor where yesterday's teacup still sat untouched. The quiet was thick, almost sacred. I thought maybe it was over, that they'd fly home and I could finally exhale. But the world rarely grants clean endings. At 10:17 a.m., my phone burst. A message from Mom. We're still in town. We want to talk. Before I could reply, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find all three of them. Mom, Dad, Sloan standing there again, the girls fidgeting behind them. Mom held a plastic grocery bag as if bringing peace offerings could erase what happened. We didn't want to leave things like that, she said, stepping inside before I invited her. We're family, Claire. Families talk. I glanced at the bag. Inside was the same chocolate cake from yesterday. Half eaten, then talk, I said. We sat again in the same places as before, like an encore of a play I'd already quit. Sloan leaned forward, her tone softer now. I'm sorry for how yesterday went. I didn't mean to upset you. I was just desperate. The boutique gets worse than I said. How much worse, I asked, though I already knew. She swallowed hard. I owe $39,000. I signed a personal guarantee. If I default, they'll come after me and Mom. She used part of her retirement fund to co-sign. I looked at Mom. Her eyes darted to the floor. I just wanted to help her get started, she said quietly. You were always so independent, Claire. I thought she needed it more. There it was, the truth, small and cutting. They never thought I needed anything. Dad finally spoke, voice rough. We just need a bridge. A few months, then everyone's back on their feet. I leaned back, the leather of the chair creaking. You've all built a life assuming I'd be your safety net. You forgot I'm not made of springs. Sloan's voice cracked. You're really going to let us drown? Why not? I met her eyes. You've been swimming in circles for years, Sloan. You call it drowning only when I stop holding you up. Mom flinched. That's cruel. No, I said quietly. Cruel is raising two daughters and only seeing one. The words landed like a slap. For once, no one spoke. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the afternoon heat shimmered against the glass. A couple walked by, holding hands, laughing. Ordinary peace. I wanted that. I deserved that. Behind me, Sloan's voice trembled, rehearsed but fraying. We're not asking for everything. Just help. Until the next quarter. I could even move in for a while. Save on rent. That last line hit like a warning siren. I turned slowly. You already packed for that, didn't you? Her face froze. I glanced at the hallway. Two oversized suitcases sat near the door, zipped and ready. You planned to stay here before I even said yes, I said. You didn't come for help. You came for territory. Sloan's cheeks flushed scarlet. You're being paranoid. Mom's voice rose in defense. She's your sister. Exactly, I said, and that's why I can see her patterns coming from a mile away. I walked to the kitchen, pulled out the manila envelope they'd left behind the day before, and laid it flat on the counter. You left this. Sloan crossed her arms. We thought you might reconsider. I did, I said, and I still won't sign. The silence stretched tight. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the faint crowd noise from Dad's phone. He'd started streaming the game again, pretending not to hear. Mom's eyes glistened. If you don't help, we could lose everything. The house, the store. Maybe you should, I said gently. Maybe losing the wrong things is the only way to learn what's worth keeping. Her tears spilled, then heavy and deliberate. After everything we did for you, I cut her off. You mean after everything I did for you, who cleaned your floors after dinner? Who wrapped Sloan's inventory while she went to parties? Who drove you to 6 different stores to find the right curtains for her living room? It was always me. You didn't raise a daughter. You raised a helper. Sloan's voice cracked. You've become so cold. I looked her dead in the eye. No. I became clear. Something shifted then. Not in them and me. I saw the pattern for what it was. Guilt is currency, obligation is leash. And for the first time I realized I didn't owe them my peace to buy their love. I picked up the envelope, tore it neatly down the center, then again into quarters. The sound was soft but final. Mom gasped. Claire. I met her eyes. You can't guilt me into saving you anymore. For a long moment no one moved. The air felt heavier, charged. Then from the TV on Dad's phone, the announcer's voice cut through. The Bengals lost again. Defense fell apart in the final minute. I exhaled slowly. Story of my life. I opened the front door. I think it's time for you to go. They hesitated, stunned that I wasn't shouting, crying, or apologizing. I just waited calm and unshaken. Sloan grabbed her kid's hands and stalked past me. You'll regret this. Maybe I said, but at least it'll be my regret, not yours. Mom lingered, eyes full of something between anger and heartbreak. One day you'll understand what it means to be a mother. Maybe I said. And when I do, I hope I raise my children to see both of their worth. She turned silent. Dad followed, muttering, Let's just go, Ev. The door closed behind them with that same soft click. Mocha trotted over, tail wagging uncertainly. I knelt down, buried my face in her fur, and finally let my hands shake. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel empty after they left. I felt free. In the silence, I heard my own heartbeat, steady, defiant, alive, and somewhere beneath that rhythm, one quiet truth pulsed steady as breath. They hadn't destroyed me. They'd handed me my defense. 2 weeks passed before the emails began. First one from Mom. Subject line, Please talk to us. It was polite, almost formal. She wrote about family bonds, forgiveness, and how difficult things have been since you turned away. She mentioned the girls missing. Me slipped in a reminder about what families should do in hard times. I read it once, closed it, and didn't reply. Then came Sloan's message. Less polished, more desperate. You've made your point. The boutique shutting down. Mom and Dad might lose part of their savings because of me. Are you happy now? I didn't answer that one either. But the silence that was my new language. They called it cruelty. I called it clarity. At work, my manager Emma stopped by my office with a grin. Corporate approved your promotion, regional director. Congratulations, Claire. Her words landed softly, not like the hollow praise I used to crave. This time I didn't feel the need to prove I deserved it. I knew I did. That night, Evan cooked dinner at his place. Salmon again, his grandmother's recipe. We ate in quiet, the good kind. You look lighter, he said finally. I think I just stopped asking people to see me, I said, and started seeing myself. He smiled, reaching for my hand. That's revenge they'll never understand. Later, we sat on his porch with the dogs curled at our feet. The air smelled like magnolia and rain. I told him about Mom's emails, the guilt, the threats wrapped in affection. What are you going to do? He asked. I already did it, I said. I stopped answering. He nodded slowly. Silence can be the loudest no. A week later, I checked my inbox again. One new message from Mom. Your father says the Bengals won this time. Defense held strong. Maybe there's hope after all. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. Then, for the first time in years, I smiled at one of her messages. I typed a single line back. Exactly, Mom. Defense makes all the difference. Then I hit send. Outside, thunder rolled low across the horizon. The storm that used to terrify me now sounded like applause. They thought cutting me off years ago taught me obedience. But all it taught me was how powerful distance can be. And this time, I'm keeping it. If you've ever been the invisible one, the helper, the peacekeeper, the one they only remember when they need something, this story is for you. Sometimes walking away isn't cruel. It's the only way to survive.